YouTube connected. Listwithelizabeth.com. Status connected. Facebook Live connected. Rumble connected. Twitter X connected. LinkedIn connected. This is the booth. We are cleared to go live. Send the signal to the studio and go live.
List with Elizabeth show, ready to go live in 3, 2.
When you think selling and buying a home,
when I think real estate, I think List with Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Kline.
Elizabeth Ann Kline. And here is the host of the List with Elizabeth show, Elizabeth Kline.
Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Kline. I am obviously the host of the List with Elizabeth show, all things real estate. I am a realtor in Northern Virginia, helping buyers and sellers alike buy and sell residential properties. I'm excited to be here with you today. There is a lot going on in the real estate world all the time. If you are looking to buy or sell a home, it may have been a while since you've done, or maybe it's your first time buying or selling a home and you need help. Best thing I can tell you is, outside of listening to this channel and liking, sharing, and subscribing on this channel, the best thing you can do is to get a top professional to help guide you. If you're in the Northern Virginia area, feel free to give me a call at 703-829-LIST. And if you're not in the area, please also feel free to reach out. I'm going to be able to connect you with top agents throughout the country that are good at their craft, know what they're doing, and can really guide you through this complex process. So today, we are going to take... Oh, I love that. I love that little superhero girl that flies in. So please hit that subscribe button, guys. Today, I'm going to bring on a guest. He is a local lender in our area. His name is Sebastian Rivera with Intercoastal Mortgage. And we are going to talk about appraisals. What is an appraisal? How does it work? Why is it important? Who needs an appraisal? We're going to cover everything from A to Z. And Sebastian is here to help us guide through that process. So Sebastian, are you there? Are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good. Good. Thank you. So Sebastian and I have worked together for many years, helping buyers through the process. Sebastian, you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been doing this for 18 years, background in economics, specialize in quantitative economics and finance as well. My goal is not just to help people get a mortgage. It's get the most efficient mortgage for their situation. Not all mortgages are created equal. There's not just one type of 30-year fixed mortgage. I can offer you over 50 types of 30-year fixed mortgage. Each one has its own efficiency, depending on your credit score, income levels, first-time buyers or not. The whole point is to get the most efficient vehicle to get your home financed.
And again, that's why I tell my audience all the time, you don't have to know everything. Just know enough to go to a professional that can guide you. I don't ever even pretend to be a lender because I'm not. I don't know 50 types of the 30-year conventional mortgages, but someone like Sebastian will. So thank you so much for that. So that aside, let's chat a little bit today about appraisals. So Sebastian, if I were a buyer and I were using you as my lender, okay, and I go under contract on a house, what is the appraisal process?
Well, let's start by defining an appraisal. It's an independent assessment of the property's fair market value. As simple as that. So what lenders want to make sure is that the property that you're purchasing is worth what you say it's going to be purchased for. If it's a $500,000 property, as lenders, we want to make sure that your property is worth $500,000, that the collateral is there. So the appraisal process consists of getting a ratified contract. Ratified simply means that both the buyers and the sellers agree at the single price. And we order an independent report. An appraiser physically goes out to the property, takes pictures, looks at comparables, other units of similar style, age, and condition. And based on recent sales in the area, recent 90 days or latest 6 months where we try to be, they determine what the fair market value is.
Okay. So sometimes there's some confusion with my clients in as much as, let's say I help someone write an offer on a house and it is contingent on an appraisal. There are different ways we can actually write that. If it is truly contingent on an appraisal, then just like Sebastian said, the appraiser has to go out and basically give a stamp of approval that the house is worth the sales price. There are slight variations on this. We can also write an offer that states, we as the buyers are willing to bring additional funds to closing in case the appraisal comes in low by fill in the blank dollars. So we might say, we will guarantee upfront, we're going to bring an additional $10,000 if this particular appraisal comes in low. Sebastian, is there anything on your end that are you seeing a lot of those where the buyers are going ahead and guaranteeing a certain amount, or are you seeing waived altogether? What do you see on the lending side of things?
In this market, it's bananas. Typically, prior COVID, I would say it was very rare to see somebody, I'm going to waive my contingencies. I'm going to waive my right to the appraisal. Now in this market, just because of the competitiveness, especially in the counties surrounding us, Northern Virginia, you have one house that goes on the market on a Friday, and by Saturday, you have 31 offers. So how do you stand out? How do you be competitive against your other 30 competitors? One of those ways is saying, hey, Mr. Seller, I'm going to buy your house. And if it doesn't appraise for the price that I'm putting, $500,000, I'm willing to do an additional $25,000. So the property can appraise for $475,000, and I'll fill in that gap for the extra $25,000. Now, I'm not only seeing appraisal gaps, but I'm also seeing people say, we don't care what the property appraises for. We're still going to buy it. And if I may, I have an extreme example of that.
Yes, please.
Property listed in Vienna, Virginia, $1.1 million. The property fair market value was about $1.1 million. Maybe they were pushing it a little bit. My buyer offered 1.25 with no contingencies. The winning offer, 1.4 million cash. Now, the story behind that is interesting. Daughter and her son living there, they had just lost their husband. Her father wanted to live by her grandson, and he had just lost his wife. So he bought the house 5 doors down, $300,000 above list to be by his family. So in extreme situations like that, money wasn't an issue. It was about being with family. And I do see a lot of situations like that where people say, we're going to waive all the appraisal. I don't care if it's $200,000 low. I want this school district, or I want this area. And we're seeing quite a bit of that.
Yes. Now, if you are going to do that, you have to make sure you have the additional funds to bring forth at settlement to cover the difference.
Or you will get to it.
Let's back up just a little bit here. If we can get to how do they get ordered? Let's step back a little bit. So I'm a buyer. I go under contract. Do I have to order the appraisal? Do I have to call anybody? Do I pay for it up front? Do I have to be there? Who's at the house? How does that process actually unfold?
Sure. I'm going to give you more information than you asked for here, but we're going all the way back to 2005 when I started in the industry. Back in the day, it was very easy. You called your favorite appraiser. Hey, how's it going? I need you to go to this house, and this is the value I'm looking for.
Right. Yeah. No problems with that at all.
Fast forward to the mortgage meltdown, everything going belly up. Now we have to order through a system called Mercury. Every lender is a little bit different, but the way it works with lenders is we go on a rotation list. We have X amount of appraisers, for example, 125 appraisers, but it differs by area. And the next one on the list is the one that goes. As a lender, as a loan officer, I never know who the appraiser is until I get a copy of the report. Now, the reason they do this is so banks and lenders cannot influence value. The definition of the appraisal is a fair, independent valuation of this property. So we as lenders order it through the system. And once we get the report, we share it with the buyers. But until I don't see the report in front of me, I have no idea who the appraiser is.
So let me fill in the gaps too. So from my side of things, I'm the realtor. If I am the listing agent, if I'm the one selling the home that's getting the appraisal done, I'll be the one receiving the phone call or the email that says, hey, Elizabeth, Mr. and Mrs. such and such appraiser was assigned to your property. They would like to come out on Tuesday at 4. Does that work for you? So if their home is vacant, usually that's no problem. If the home is still occupied, then I will have to go ahead and coordinate with the sellers to make sure they understand when the appraiser is coming, if that's a good time or not. So the scheduling gets done. And when the appraiser goes to the home, you don't have to be there if you are the seller. You can just let them use a key in the lockbox, but you're welcome to stay and show them around the property and tell them a little bit about updates you've done. Everything that you've put into the property could make a difference in the appraiser's eyes on value. So go ahead and, brag a little bit about your French drainage system or your, updated solar panels or whatever you have. And the appraiser is usually there, I would say probably 15 to 30 minutes, not super long. Now, if you get chatting, they might stay a little bit longer. But really, it's another showing of the home, essentially, but it's for the appraiser. Now, once in a while, Sebastian, how often does it happen when the bank doesn't have to send a person to the home anymore? Something called a desktop appraisal. What are desktop appraisals and how often are they used?
So it's also PIW. Well, it's different. So you have PIWs, then you have desktop appraisals. Desktop appraisals is just an automatic valuation that we punch it into the system and we may get a desktop appraisal approval. You are good to go. The new ones are called PIWs, property inspection waivers from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And what these do, it's for property values, sales prices under $1 million, typically 20% down plus. If we enter everything through the underwriting system and we're originating a standard Fannie Freddie loan, and the system says, hey, we accept the value of the sales price as is, at that point, we don't even have to do an appraisal. So the 3 ways to do it is with a full appraisal, interior and exterior pictures, a desktop appraisal, which is just an automatic valuation, still has a cost. And last but not least, if you get the PIW through the automated underwriting system, through Fannie or through Freddie, then you need no appraisal. You can simply assume the value that you put in the system as the appraisal value, which is phenomenal. But that does cap the sales prices up to $1 million, which in this area, half the properties immediately don't qualify.
Right. Well, thank you for that, because it is important for folks to understand not all appraisals are done the same way, right? Sometimes an appraiser is going to the house. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're done automatically. Sometimes if it's an all cash deal, you don't need an appraisal. So again, there's all different ways and paths that can be taken on your home buying journey. So it's important that you just have someone guiding you, explaining everything to you along the way so you can understand what's happening as it's happening.
And some banks and some loan programs will require an appraisal. For example, an FHA and a VA loan on a purchase will always require an appraisal. Conventionals, not necessarily.
Yeah, so lots of ins and outs with your loan type, the way you're approaching the offer, etc. So sometimes people also ask me this. They'll say, Elizabeth, can you influence the appraiser? Can you help, push the value this way or that way? And really, I mean, the answer is no. We really can't influence an appraiser. The best that we can do, if there is someone, in fact, going to the home, we can try to pull together an appraisal package that we would prepare that will say, hey, here are 5 recent sales that we think are similar enough to this home to support the sale price. Whether or not the appraiser opens that packet, we don't know. Whether or not they read the packet, we don't know. But we can try to go ahead and support, the appraisal price by pulling together our own reports. But like Sebastian said, this appraiser is just on a list of 150 people and they're going through piece by piece. So we don't know if that appraiser is truly, really comfortable or has a big knowledge set of the area that he or she is being assigned to. Sometimes.
Quick note on that one. So
Yeah.
for appraisal assignments, this is a question I get often from listing agents. Hey, Sebastian, I can see your office is in Fairfax, Virginia. This property is recently Towson, Maryland. Where's the appraiser coming from? We're not going to send the Fairfax, Virginia appraiser to Towson, Maryland. We keep a close niche in miles. I believe that the radius right now is 10 miles from where the office or the residence of the appraiser is to where the property is going to be appraised.
Oh, great.
So there is market knowledge on the appraisers. And I can't tell you how many big banks I've seen this happen over and over again. They send a Howard County appraiser out to Vienna, Virginia to try to appraise their home. And they're like, what's going on here? And the numbers are just completely off.
Yes. So again, buyers, I don't know if you picked up on that, but depending on who your lender is, can make a difference on how the appraisal gets ordered and who's doing the appraisal and the value that ultimately comes in at. You really have to be savvy in this market. The big banks are great for certain things, not really for residential mortgages. Someone like Sebastian, who all he does is residential mortgages. He has his cell phone on him 24/7. I can call him 24 hours a day, holidays, weekends, nights, whenever he's going to pick up. That's all he does. If I call Wells Fargo on a Saturday morning at 11:30 a.m. and tell them I need something by Sunday, I'm not going to get serviced. So that's an excellent point to understand that depending on who your lender is, that's going to impact who the appraiser is, what they know about the area, and potentially how that could affect your contract to buy your home.
And it's okay to ask the lender. I mean, if they're working with a big bank, every now and then big banks offer some amazing deals that I haven't been able to touch. And it's okay as a buyer if you say, hey, is this appraiser you're going to be sending within the area? Are they familiar with the area? Can you please find out? That's an okay question. That's perfectly valid. And we are allowed to ask that. So don't be shy to ask that. Just make sure that the appraiser knows the area, because there's some pocket areas. Mm-hmm. And I'll just mention specifically Baltimore. Holy smokes. One street, you're going to see $1 million houses. The next one, you have to be careful driving there at night. The next one, $750,000 houses. So depending on which street is how they're valued. So that market knowledge, that specific market knowledge for appraisers is key.
So let's move on to our third point here. A lot of times people are going to ask me, Elizabeth, hey, you told me the appraiser was going out to the house on Tuesday and it's Thursday. Is the report in, right? How long do they actually take to come in?
Depends. Two-part question. So standard 14 days. That's what most appraisers like to see. 14 days for the report. In this market, just because appraisers are not as busy, I'd say we're getting back anywhere between 8 to 10 calendar days. If we ask for a rush, I've had appraisers get it overnight. So rush, of course, has an additional fee, but I'd say standard right now, under 10 days. 8 to 10 days is probably 80% of the appraisal reports coming back.
And you said that appraisers aren't that busy right now. And why is that? Not
as busy, simply because of where the market is. A lot of people holding on to their homes. A lot of people are just, like holding on to a teddy bear, like holding on to a house. Well, I have a 2.5% rate. I don't want to change this for 6.5 right now. Let's wait until rates come down before I sell this, or maybe I just want to rent it out. I've seen so much of that. So until there's not more inventory, we're not going to see more sales. And without more sales, we're not going to see more appraisal reports.
Perfect. No, that definitely makes sense. So, a lot of times I tell people, look, just because the appraiser went out today doesn't mean we're going to know tonight what the value is. We may not know for 2 weeks. I did have the craziest story I have. We got the appraisal report back the day before closing, and it was low, and there was a problem. So you cannot always, this process, we all try our best to make sure it runs smoothly, but there will be bumps along the road. And again, that's why there's professionals out there to help guide you and say, okay, here's what we do now. Here's what we do now. Here's what we do now. Here's our contingency plan. Here's plan B in case this is going to happen. So there's always surprises in this journey of buying a home and selling a home, but we will all be there to help you get through it.
And the county also, it has a big impact on how long the appraisals are coming. I had a loan in Florida that closed, I believe, in December or January. It took 27 days to get an appraisal on a 45-day closing. we were calling the appraiser like, what's going on? We put in
Wow.
7 different bids out there to get it. One appraiser came back and said, I'll get it to you in 1 week for $5,000 on $1 million purchase. It made no sense.
Oh, wow. You know, the other thing I do want to point out too is the appraisal process. It's not a math formula where you fill in a number of bedrooms, a location, a year, and it spits out an amount. This is more like going to an art show, looking at the things hanging on the wall and saying, oh gosh, I would pay $500 for that piece of art. And someone else might say, well, I'd pay $700 for that piece of art. There is an art to appraising. And I'm not an appraiser. Sebastian's not an appraiser. But if you talk with appraisers, you know, they will fill you in a little bit more on their end of the process. But I know from my end, being a listing agent, I did have one home that went through 2 appraisals. The first contract we had on the home fell through, but it did get an appraisal done. And we had a value come in from that appraiser. We went back on the market, got a second contract. A brand new appraiser went out, looked at the exact same home, right? 3 weeks later, and had a $50,000 difference in the value. And I know things are moving quick, but I mean, at the time that this happened in 3 weeks, there was no way the market moved $50,000. So again, it's very subjective. So that's why appraisals, we always say, well, we think it's going to appraise around here, but until that number hits, we really don't know. Okay. So we're going to look at what does an appraisal look like, right? Is it a tangible thing? What does it actually look like? Is it just an email? We actually have a sample here that we're going to pull up just to show everybody what an actual appraisal report looks like. And Sebastian, who gets this report when it's done?
So initially, depending on the bank or the lender, there is a specific team that receives a copy of this report just to verify everything looks okay. Then it goes to the underwriter. Underwriter wants to double check it before releasing it to the loan officer or the team, just to make sure everything looks okay, the address is okay, the comparables are okay, the value aligns with what the data suggests. And if all that's okay, it gets released. From the time it's delivered to the lender to the time the loan officer has it, I'd say anywhere 2 to 4 hours until we have it. The teams that review these do that quick. Now, these reports are typically anywhere from 22 to 30 pages, just depending on the report and how much data is needed. And what they do is they give all the physical characteristics of the home. They show number of bedrooms above grade, below grade, so above ground, below ground, number of bathrooms. They show when the home was built, the characteristics, the condition of the home, C1 being the brand new house, C3, a home that's been lived in for several years, C4, C5, the lower categories, a beat up home or a tear down even. At the back of the report, you see several pictures of the actual home, and you're also going to see comparables. Comparables is a home of similar size, square footage, condition, and year built to the one that you're purchasing. They like to have 3 main comparables plus an additional 2 or 3 on the back. And what this basically does is say, hey, all these similar homes of age, location, and size sold for this amount, and this is ours. On the subject property, which is the one you're buying, they also do adjustments. If yours has a deck, they'll probably adjust it 10,000 plus. If it's a Trek deck, they'll adjust it at 12,000 plus. If it has a hot tub, if it doesn't have something, if it doesn't have an attached garage, they discount it. So based on all the historical data they have of recent sales, they're going to adjust with real data what yours is going to look like. But exactly like you said,
see this page here? Yeah. Stop on this for a minute. So this shows you all the red dot is the house someone's trying to buy. And then the other dots around, these are the ones where the appraiser has pulled these specific homes to look at, to compare it, to try to get a good value on the house that's being sold. So you can see some of them are close by, some of them are a little bit further away. You really don't know. And every appraiser is going to pull different homes. And to Sebastian's point, if one person says, hey, a deck's worth 10,000, another appraiser may say, hey, a new deck's worth 8,000. Or, and this has nothing to do with what you pay for it, homeowners. Sorry, but your deck might have cost 50,000. They're only going to give you a credit of maybe 8 or 10 on the appraisal. So see, these are very important. So when you get your appraisal report, if you're the buyer, You own the report. You've paid for the report. This is your report. It doesn't really go to the sellers. You can release it to the sellers if you want to show them, but this is yours as a buyer.
Correct. And this, once we have it, the underwriter is going to review this report and basically say, hey, yes, this conforms to the area. This makes sense. When it's a property within an HOA or homeowners association or a condominium, underwriters like at least one sale from that community or that building as well, just to have something within the community. That's about it.
Also, sometimes you get a home that is selling in an area where there hasn't been any activity for over 2 years. And people will say to me, well, Elizabeth, what are the comparables? Well, there are none. I mean, when there are none, right? So now the appraiser, again, the value could come in many different ways because depending on how they approach it, you just don't know. 2 or 3 appraisers, you're going to get 2 or 3 different values.
You go, instead of the sales approach, you could go cost approach, or you could go income approach. That's getting into a little more nitty gritty, but there's different approaches at how to appraise a property.
And Sebastian, what's the going rate for an appraisal right now through?
It went up again. So conventional loans, anywhere from 550 to 600 is normal. Above $1 million, you're looking at about 750, just because there's more data that needs to be pulled in. Government loans, which are FHAs and VAs, about 650 up to 700 I've seen. And it just depends as politicians and legislation continues to come forth with more requirements that need to be on the appraisal. Well, appraisers spend more time doing these reports, hence they charge more.
Yeah. So, and who pays for the appraisal?
The buyers. The buyer will pay for the appraiser. The actual appraisal is property of the buyer. It is only shared with the buyer at buyer's discretion with the buyer's agent, of course. It is not shared with the listing agent. Even when listing agents ask me, hey, can I get a copy of the appraisal report? I'm very sorry. It's not your property. It's shared with the buyer. If they want to share it with you, that's perfectly fine.
Yes. And sometimes buyers choose to share it. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And when the appraisal report comes back, we're gonna come to our last point here. There are only 3 outcomes, okay, to an appraisal result. It's either going to appraise above the sales price, or what we call high. It's going to appraise, quote unquote, at value, which means right on the dot of the sales price, or it's going to appraise low.
Yep.
So, Sebastian, let's chat through a little bit about if I'm a buyer, okay, and the appraisal comes in high, what does that mean to me?
Instant equity. Yay.
Yay. That's a good day.
You bought $1 million property at appraised for 1.1. Guess what? You're buying a property with $100,000 of equity based on the market at that time. It's amazing. That's your ideal scenario.
Absolute ideal. Yes. Doesn't happen very much. What percentage of time does that happen?
The last 12 months, I've seen it anywhere from 5 to 8% probably. I've still seen it. Okay. Not as much, but I have
here and there. Here and there.
Here and there.
Okay. So what if it comes in at value? And how does that magically happen that it comes in exactly at the sales price?
A lot of buyers ask me, like, how did it exactly come in at this price? It seems fishy. Well, we are lenders. We're required to send a copy of the ratified contract to the appraiser. So the appraiser can see all the numbers. They're going to see the sales price and say, okay, I have a target value. Let me see if I can hit the target value. It's rare for an appraiser to over-appraise it. Unless the value is just blatantly obvious. But typically, we're going to see most of the appraisals come big right at sales price.
Yeah, I had a townhouse once that the sales price was $512,800, and it appraised at $512,800 on the dot. Yep. So the appraisals know, they see the contract, they're trying, right? They're trying to get to that value. But sometimes it comes in low. So that's the third scenario here. What if the value comes in low? Let's say the price is $512,800 and it appraises at $490,000.
It depends. Depends if you have an appraisal contingency, first off. But there's really 3 options of what's going to happen there. Either the buyer's going to make up the difference, the seller's going to make up the difference by lowering the price, or there's going to be a negotiation somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. If you as a buyer, let's say this happened to you and you had your appraisal contingency in place. If you did not want to pay additional funds and the seller didn't want to lower the price and there's no agreement to meet in the middle, you can then, as a buyer, void the contract and move on. And then, at least in Virginia, you would get your earnest money deposit back. So it just, like Sebastian said, it just depends. If you had the contingency, if you didn't have it, if you had a buffer amount on there that you promised you'd pay in advance or you didn't. So many factors kind of play into this. Sebastian, what if I had a VA or an FHA loan? Talk to me a little bit about my ability or inability to actually waive an appraisal.
You can waive the appraisal contingency in terms of saying, hey, I will be responsible for any difference, but you can't waive an appraisal altogether. VA and FHA are very particular about their buyers, and they want to safeguard the buyer as much as possible. They don't want the buyer to get into a precarious situation where they buy a home that is inhabitable. So there are certain minimum requirements that VA and FHA have that conventional doesn't have. I'll give you an easy example of one. With VA loans, if you have a staircase, you have to have a railway to grab on. You just have to have it. You cannot close without it. And they are militant, excuse the pun, about it. So there's some additional requirements that VA and FHA have. So they will require to have an appraisal on a purchase, not necessarily on a refinance, but on the purchase, they do.
And, you know, as a buyer, if you have a VA loan and you're a buyer, you can attach an addendum that says we agree to waive the appraisal contingency. However, it is not enforceable by law. So if push came to shove, the appraisal came in low, you're a VA buyer, you just didn't want to pay the extra, you can get out of it. It's sort of like a gentleman's handshake addendum. I don't think these are really encouraged, but they are done in the marketplace. But like Sebastian said, there are more stringent things that a VA loan is going to require. I've seen them pump the brakes on things like they didn't like the siding. The VA appraiser didn't like the siding on a house. They said it wasn't nice enough, good enough, and that the seller had to essentially put up all new siding on the home before they would approve the loan. So when you're selling a home, if you have two offers come in, one is VA and one is conventional, there are certain pros and cons to selecting each offer. And sometimes people don't think this deep into it to say, hey, if I pick this VA, I may then have home repairs I am required to do before this buyer can proceed to settlement. Whereas on a conventional side, that we don't really see that happening.
Chipped paint is another big one on FHA. You wouldn't think chipped paint outside, like what's the big deal? You are required to take off the chipped paint and repaint with an FHA loan.
So let me ask you this. Let's say the appraisal report comes back and the appraiser is requiring this chipped paint to be fixed. Mm-hmm. And the sellers say, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. Not doing it. Can the buyers do it? And or what do the buyers have as options moving forward?
For liability reasons, that depends. The buyers are not supposed to do it. No. I have seen instances where the buyers say, you know what, I love this house. This is really easy. I do this for a living. I saw this on a plumber. I do this for a living. I'll do it for free. I don't mind. And the seller said, I will release you of liability if you do this. So to make everything kosher, what they ended up doing, luckily, is that the listing agent hired the buyer to do this repair, and they ended up doing the repair at a minimal cost. So the cost ended up being like $1. A couple $1,000s worth of work, but with $1. It was a contract signed, and they paid, and they exchanged goods and services, which was perfect for the contract. But for liability reasons, sellers just have to be cautious. What happens if this person that repairs it botches it up? Who's liable for it? Mm-hmm. So just be very careful with that. Always consult with an attorney before doing something like that.
Also, the fear is, you're a buyer and you're trying to buy this house, and if you agree to go in and do repairs on a house you don't own yet, and then the deal falls through, now what, right?
I did see that happen one time.
It gets very, very sticky. So again, in this market with low inventory, if you are a seller and you get multiple contracts and you have a VA an FHA, and a conventional loan, your safest bet from this little perspective that we're talking about here is conventional. The appraiser is not going to care if there's chip paint. They're not going to care if you have a handrail going down on your stairwell. They're not going to care about all these different things. I had a house once in Fairfax, and it was an old farmhouse, and the buyers were VA, and they came in super strong. My sellers were excited, accepted the offer, and then we hit the appraisal. And the appraisal report came back and said, it will appraise at value with the following repairs. And there were about 5 big repairs. I mean, they had to redo the entire deck, all of the siding, the chimney cap, handrails, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And we were able to work through that, but that was extremely difficult, very stressful on all parties' ends, and a hardship. Then I had another instance. This was probably one of the most mind-blowing moments for me as an agent. Sitting at my desk here in my home office, phone rings, pick up the phone. Elizabeth, we found you online. We want to put in an offer right now. It's our neighbor's house. We know them. They know us. They want to sell it to us. We need to put the offer in today. It has to be today. Okay, let me help you out. Slow down. They were doing a VA loan. Okay. I did not see the property. There was no time for that. They didn't need me to see the property. Write this up. I'm a VA buyer. Bam. Did the paperwork, got them pre-approved, got it signed, got it ratified in a couple hours. Feeling good. I'm a superstar. So surprisingly, everything just flowed very easily with that deal. No bumps. Went from ratification to close very quickly. I didn't physically see the house until closing day. We do our final walkthrough right before settlement. So I met the clients at the home. We walked in. I never in a million years would have thought a VA appraisal would have gone through on that house. Everything was wrong on that. Everything was wrong on that house. It was a mess. And I looked at them and I said, I can't believe you got this through on a VA loan. So, hey, I'm just the messenger. I'm not an appraiser, but in general, there are more hardships when you're doing a VA or an FHA loan on the appraisal side. Now, sometimes like that miracle house, things just passed. Nobody said a word. It went right through. So, we see a lot of different things in this industry. Sebastian, you've been doing this, like you said, for almost 15 years. I'm in 10 years.
18 now. Yeah.
18. Yeah. So, things happen. Again, please align yourself with good professionals if you're going to go through this process. We hopefully have seen it before or can help guide you and avoid any pitfalls that there might be out there. And Sebastian, anything else you want to add about the process?
I'll just this specifically on buyers out there, just because I've closed thousands of loans at this point. Make sure you hire a professional. I've seen a lot of people say, you know what, I can sell my own house and then disaster happens, or I can negotiate my own contract as a buyer. I'm coming from out of state. I'm a professional negotiator. I know how to do this. And then I'm trying to piece together the botched contracts. And I just see so many mistakes. Just when you're selecting your agent. I mean, Elizabeth, you and I have worked multiple times on multiple deals. I love how you work and how you treat your clients. Just make sure you always hire a professional, because if you think a professional is expensive, you've never worked with an amateur. Holy smokes. I've seen some things that would make your hair fall out. Just really bad situations. People losing $50,000 plus on deposits because they weren't sure what they were doing. And they're like, oh, well, this is how it's done in my industry. It's like, well, welcome to real estate.
Also, every state is different. And sometimes within states, every county is different. So it's really important you understand and know the process. All right. So Sebastian, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I hope everyone out there learned a little bit about appraisals. I'm always learning every day on the job, and happy to share that knowledge with you all here. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe this channel, and we will see you all next time. Signing off for today.
When you're ready to